live from New York. And this is the day after Super Tuesday, which is what? Not so Super Wednesday or whatever the heck we want to call it. No, I think it's a pretty Super Wednesday for those of us who are Trump supporters. Could we have done better yesterday? No, not really. Uh, for Trump to win Vermont, he'd have to become a socialist, and we wouldn't want that. Then he would have lost everything else. So aside from Haley winning Vermont, which amounts to nothing, he just wiped her across the board. So he's beaten her in every single primary, but the 90% Democrat DC and the 100% socialist Vermont. Uh, every victory, I believe, has it all been double digit? I think so. Yeah, last night they were all double digits. The closest one was Utah, 14. Uh, a couple that were really important that we'll go over that can tell you a little something toward the next election. I guess the biggest new item of news, if it is McConnell endorsed Trump. That's news. Probably not. She didn't. She's waiting. What is she waiting for? To find out the answer to what caused the Civil War. She will be given a full and complete answer to that, written out by a high school student. And once that's done, or as well as the provinces that she wants to spend all that money on and get people killed in Ukraine that she couldn't mention. Ramaswamy is objecting to allow her to answer it, to put in the answer now, but everybody else is telling Vivek to be kind and generous. And so Trump's speech last night was very, very good. It was very low key, as it should be. He didn't. He didn't. He let the event speak for itself, which was, I think, the right thing to do. It was a powerful victory, about as big as a presidential candidate has had in a primary ever. Um, when you're when you win every one of the major contests and every one by double digits and several by over 50%, it's a pretty good indication that you're the choice of your party uh, by massive amount. If anything, he's brought the party closer and closer together. Um, has she contributed anything in this situation? She hasn't really contributed much in terms of a substantive debate, which is unfortunate because I remember when I first met with Vivek Ramaswamy, I said, because already he had been talking about issues, and uh, I said, this is going to be your first run, and you're not going to win. He looked at me like, I don't know how he looked at me. Everybody thinks they're going to win when they run, right? But in any event, he's a smart enough guy to know that he had a long way to go. And I said the most important thing is to run on some issues, bring up some issues, use it as an opportunity to educate. And he did, didn't he? Ramaswamy did educate. And so did Trump. I mean, Trump keeps doing it. Look at last night. Last night, if you go back over his speech, as I did a little while ago, because some people thought it was a little too low key, I went over it, and he went over about 8 major issues. He's actually the only candidate to talk about issues. Well, there aren't that many candidates, right? She talks about how bad he is. Biden talks about how bad he is, and he now has taken to talking about the issues. I would say that in his in his in his case, it was pretty good review of the issues, what the most important ones are, and then uh, no mistakes. Sometimes those things result in you're saying something nasty about the other side, or he didn't. He was quite, nice. And uh, should she have endorsed him today? How long she does it within the next week or two, no. Probably would have been better if she did, but she's not a big person. I think that when you look at this race, Ramaswamy, DeSantis live to fight another day for sure. She's finished as a candidate. I just think she was an exceedingly negative candidate without a message. What is she running on? War in Ukraine? Maybe. Let's revive the Bush administration. But doesn't tell us how. Is she in favor of uh, reducing spending? Not more than any other Republican, or not in any specific respect. So I can't think of any issue that we attach to her, other than uh, people don't like him. He can't win. Only she can win, and which is not true. And and she doesn't know the cause of the Civil War. I mean, that's what she contributed to the campaign. She did contribute exercise for Trump, which is good. In other words, he didn't just have to walk through the primaries. He got pushed a little, and he had to come up with strategies to deal. Well, first to deal with DeSantis, who was far bigger a threat at one time, and then it faded away. Um, and he had to deal with some of the other candidates, and he had to deal with her attacks, which he did well by parrying them aside and uh, sticking to the issues. I think she made him a better candidate, gained him some votes, solidified some Republicans, and other than that, did very little for herself. Uh, the biggest win was in the state, as it was predicted to be, in the state of Alabama, where he got 70% of the vote and 50 delegates. Um, the real big win in California at 61%, but also 169 delegates. A big win in Alaska. I'm sorry, Alaska might have been the biggest at 76%. Um, 66 in Oklahoma, 60 in Texas, uh, 61 in California, as I said, 70 in Alabama, 76 in Alaska. Um, the ones that were closer were the ones that you would expect. Massachusetts, 23. And I thought 28 was a good number for Virginia, which is let's look at this, what we would call the swing states, right? Virginia would probably be the one of the swingiest of them, and that was 28%. That's a good number. Um, 14 in Utah is kind of interesting. It might mean the Democrats think about it at 14. I don't think they'll get anywhere. It hasn't voted Democrat in a long, long time. But 14 was of all the numbers, it was the one sore point that would sort of stick out. Uh, if you look at the other, for example, 14 in Utah, 40 in Minnesota, which is swing state, but leading Democrat, right? But 40 gives you a lot of hope that you can take it. 47 in Maine means you're going to keep your one vote for sure, and who knows? Uh, 40, as I said, in Minnesota, North Carolina, which he's won twice, but very close. 51% means looks like he's doing better in North Carolina. So you look at North Carolina, looks like a really good chance. Virginia, a chance at 28, right? And Minnesota at 40 gives you hope. So those are three states that could go either way that look pretty good for you. Utah, a little disappointing. Colorado at 30, about what you'd expect. I'm not counting on Colorado. 30 doesn't tell you a lot about whether you can make it or not make it. Um, So that's what you get out of it. And now we move on, a couple more primaries, and it's over in terms of the numbers. It's really over in terms of everything else. Anyway, I just want to throw in a reminder that on April 8th, there's going to be a solar eclipse. Now we'll put up a map of it later. It's going to be along the northeast, certain spots where you can get a very good look at it.
What's the date?
The 8th of April. The 8th of April. There's a diagonal line stretching from Texas to Maine and New Brunswick, Canada. It'll cross New York's Adirondack Mountains at about 3:25 p.m. So there are lots of places where you'll get a chance. You'll get a chance to see it. Pardon me.
Are we on the radio?
Yes. Yeah. We'll see. Maybe it'll go dark. We'll see. I don't think it's going to cross New York.
Eclipse is where it blocks the sun?
Yes.
As opposed to a
partial eclipse, which is the partial blockage of the sun.
What's the other one where it's the sun that blocks out the moon? Well, a lunar eclipse or a solar eclipse, right?
Yes. This is a solar eclipse.
We had a big one under President Trump, I remember.
This is a solar eclipse. It's a time for animal sex, it says here.
That's what happens during
all the animals have sex, yeah. I don't know if that's true. And the Galapagos tortoises already have started mating. They're getting ready for it. I guess they know it's coming. One of the polls that was taken right before or during, oh, by the way, Biden lost Samoa for whatever that to Jason Palmer, whoever he is. I don't think he's a real threat. So I wouldn't, if I were Trump, I wouldn't start getting ready to run against him. This poll was very interesting because it's a little different than usual. It's when asked if which one of the two chief executives negatively affected you, because they were both president, right?
Yeah.
Only 18% of the 980 people polled by the New York Times and Siena College felt that Biden's policies had benefited them personally. 18%. 40% felt that Trump's policies had benefited them personally. So that's a little better than 2-1 in favor of Trump. Whereas 43% said Biden's actions had hurt them, and only 25% said the same about Trump. So that's quite a big delta between the two.
Yeah.
There's no question that people felt that they were benefited more by Trump by a little better than 2-1.
Wow.
Then if you go into you go into the groupings, 19% of white voters, 19% of white voters felt that Biden had helped them, but 44% of white voters felt that Trump had helped them. Only 17% of black voters felt that Biden had helped them, whereas 26% of black voters felt that Trump had helped them. Only 15% of Hispanic voters felt that Biden had helped them, whereas 37%. Now, that's almost the same as the number of whites, which was 44. 37% of Hispanic voters felt that Trump had helped them. So there's a difference of 37 to 15 between those who felt that Trump had helped them and those who felt that Biden had helped them. And then among female voters, it was only 17% of female voters felt that Biden had helped them, and 39% of female voters felt that Trump did. And then on males, it was 18% of male voters who felt that Biden had helped them, and 41% that felt that Trump had helped them. Now, these are the polls that go beyond the polls that seem very strong for Trump right now. It looks like, and the Times put it this way, that that he's sort of getting a nostalgic reaction to his presidency. They call it nostalgic as if it's like false, but they're forgetting that if we do look back on his presidency, even with the pandemic, there was no wars. He left a peaceful world. Now we've got a world that's hardly peaceful. I mean, it's threatening in various aspects of wider wars and maybe even a world war. We had a much more stable economy and an economy that was accepted. We have here Biden arguing that it's a good economy, and most people feeling that it isn't because of the fact that things cost too much, which may be caused by inflation, high interest rates. Doesn't matter. People are spending a lot more money for things. Their effective salary has gone down rather than up when you consider the cost of things. And that's just a reality, and that's factoring in the pandemic with Trump. Minority employment numbers have never been as good as they were under Trump, and general happiness, as you see, about the condition of things was much greater under Trump than under Biden, where there's a sort of feeling of things are out of control and things aren't working. There's certainly more crime. There's certainly more of a situation in the American cities of being out of control. During the Biden years, some of them have set astounding records for murder, and they are now occupied by very, 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 very pro-criminal, anti-law enforcement, progressive mayors, and even worse, district attorneys put there by Soros. Many of those cities are plagued by that and beginning to rebel against it. And that was not the case 4 years ago. Soros's interference has been was great for Antifa and Black Lives Matter. Everybody was set free. And it looks almost as if like these people were put there for that to happen. But the fact is, it's caused tremendous political backlash for Biden. And I suspect there's going to be an issue, even bigger issue in the campaign. So those issues remain, and the biggest one being now immigration, and the growing problem, not just of the large numbers coming over the border that are not under control, but the migrant crime problem, which is, there's a new crime every day. Actually, it's been going on for quite some time and hidden, because even one of the more famous ones, the Lake and Riley case, when it was originally reported by AP, the murderer and the assailant was described as an Athens resident. Of course, he was only an Athens resident for a short period of time. He came originally from Venezuela, and immediately started committing serious crimes, including raping a child and killing a young girl. And he's by no means not alone. So there is a rampant migrant crime problem, from minor crimes to extremely serious crimes. And there's a reason for that. This selection of people coming in, because they haven't been vetted, because many of them are coming in not either vetted in a very cursory way, or not vetted at all. It gives the cartels a great deal of leeway to send criminals in. And it allows people like Maduro to empty out their prisons, which they are doing. And we're feeling the effects of it. And it's going to get worse. And it's no other way than to blame it on Biden, who invited them here during the last convention, in which he told them to surge to the border, and then set up all kinds of incentives for them. Or someone like Adams in New York, who made New York a super sanctuary city that he now wants to change, but he's the one who did it. So things right now look pretty desperate for Biden. Pretty good for Trump. It could all change, but so could the candidate. I'm still not convinced that Biden's the candidate to go all the way here, particularly since he seems to be getting cognitively worse, if that's possible. Some of the appearances, there's just that completely, it's not even so much now what he says, which is pretty absurd, but the look on his face, which is completely vacant. It looks like he doesn't know where he is. Well, today was also a big day for Fannie Ho, although not in court. The now famous lawyer Ashley Merchant, who represents Michael Roman and helped to discover these blockbuster facts on Fannie the Ho, really had a chance really to explain herself today before the legislature. And although it didn't bring out any new facts of significance, it did allow for a really better understanding of the actual facts. Um, she testified for 3.5 hours. It was a Republican Senate panel, and she basically explained very clearly that she met up with Terrence Bradley in court. Terrence Bradley was Wade's friend, partner, and divorce attorney. During the course of the conversation, he was very open with her about the scandalous relationship that his friend, who we had broken up, they had ceased their friendship, I guess, and their partnership, had with the district attorney. He was abundantly clear that the relationship began before the district attorney hired him for a position as a special prosecutor of a case where he had no particular level of expertise. It was interesting to me in reading the testimony that I had forgotten the judge didn't allow Ashley Merchant to show Wade's lack of expertise, and I don't know why. That is certainly relevant to the conflict. I mean, if she had gone ahead and had a boyfriend who was the number one expert on RICO, like I used to be, for example, there would have been at least an alternative reason for the hiring. But here he knew nothing about racketeering, and he had never tried a felony case. So it's a little like Hunter Biden. What are you paying Hunter Biden all that money for other than to bribe Joe, right? There's no other reason. Why are you paying all the money to this guy other than the fact that he's your lover? You want to spend time with him. You want to go on some free vacations with him. And you want to use the government coffers to do that. All $700,000 of them, which she has given to him so far. The end result being it'll go well over $1 million if this stays. It also allowed for the summary of the testimony. There's now a number of witnesses that show that they had a relationship before she hired him. Remember, they deny it under oath. They, meaning Fannie and Wade, under oath, say we didn't have a relationship until after Fannie hired him for the unnecessary job of special prosecutor. Terrence Bradley, according to Ashley Merchant and her corroborated by her text messages or emails, was told by Terrence Bradley that their relationship began some couple of years earlier than that, when they met in a courtroom, I think. But in any event, they were dating for some time. He was living with her at a particular house that was owned by someone named Yartley, who was a prior girlfriend of his, and according to Bradley, they during that period of time, they had an affair. They went on vacations together. They certainly stepped up the vacations once the money started pouring in from the government. And they had a very, very open and notorious relationship. That is corroborated by another witness named Cindy Lee Yeager. Cindy Lee Yeager is a prosecutor in an adjoining jurisdiction of some note and reputation. And she was also told by Bradley, and has since come forward, the same thing, except not as often or as in much detail, although she was told the key details. Bradley told her that he was having an affair with Fanny, who obviously really gets around, and that they were going on trips together, that it started well before he was hired, and that and she adds a very, very significant additional possible crime to it, in that she overhears a conversation between Fanny and Bradley, in which Fanny tells Bradley to keep his mouth shut, and that they're after them, and that he better just keep his mouth shut, otherwise known as an obstruction of justice. When we add this to Fanny's testifying under oath, that the cash that she was theoretically paying, for which she had no receipts, no proof, no nothing, that cash was taken from her campaign funds, we now have two unexplained allegations from her own mouth, or mouth of independent witness, of serious felonies committed by her that don't seem to be pursued in crooked Fulton County, or crooked Georgia, led by Governor Kemp. Governor Kemp. I guess you get to do things like that in crooked Georgia, which is getting a terrible reputation, which somebody better save. I mean, the reality is we now have two shocking additions to everything else. It is clear beyond anybody's doubt that they are lying completely, that they are in a conflicted relationship, that it had an impact on the prosecution, in the fact that it tainted it irreparably. And now we've got two independent crimes: that she was using campaign money for personal expenses, and that she was engaging in obstruction of justice with her lover by telling him to keep his mouth shut, and therefore tampering with a or the key witness. So even though there wasn't a court session today, it goes deeper and deeper and deeper, and how this case can survive can only be true because of what I said at the very beginning about Atlanta and Fulton County is true. When I described it in terms of stealing the election, the place is corrupt from top to bottom. And that's how you get away with saying things like, I took cash and campaign money and nobody did anything about it. Or you say you obstructed justice and they do nothing about it. The quote that was overheard by Cindy Lee Yeager was, basically for him to keep his mouth shut because they are coming after us. Yeager overheard Willis telling Bradley, they are coming after us. You don't need to talk to them about anything about us. That's about as clear a case of tampering with a witness as one can find. Now we're going to take a short break, and we'll be right back.
Celebrate the new year, we're having the biggest sale ever on overstock clearance and brand new products. For example, save 60% on our Goose Down comforters, the best comforters ever. They go perfectly with our MyPillow bed sheets and duvet covers. Save 25% on our brand new kitchen towels. They're made with the same technology as our famous My Towels. Our initial quantities are extremely low, so get them now before they go. Our seasonal flannel sheets are finally in. You save up to 50%, and they sell out fast every year, so order now. They're truly the best flannel sheets you'll ever sleep on. Or save up to 80% on all our clearance items. And this is where it gets even better. For a limited time, your entire order ships absolutely free. So go to mypillow.com or call the number on your screen. Use that promo code to get deep discounts on all MyPillow products. And for a limited time, your order ships absolutely free.
Okay. All right, we're back.
Hi, this is Rudy Giuliani. We're back again. And I thought maybe we would, since I described it, and she did a pretty good job of describing it herself, although it was over 3.5 hours, and I was able to keep this kind of summarized so you'd get it. But let's listen to Ashley Merchant, a bit of her testimony in front of the Georgia legislature.
Because Mr. Wade was the one that took over that power. And so the emails that were attached to a lot of the pleadings, it was interesting. It first started out that there was someone else in the DA's office who's actually an employee of the DA's office who was negotiating all of that. And then it evolved to another member of the DA's staff. And then ultimately it was Mr. Wade. And there's emails where he said, I'm the only one that can grant immunity. I'm the only one that has the power to do this. I'm in charge.
Was he engaged or involved in the special grand jury process?
Oh, very much so. He was by far the lead of it.
Well, I can kind of corroborate that. I was a grand jury witness, and he's the one who questioned me, and he questioned me in a way that made quite clear that he isn't much of a lawyer, and therefore had to be hired for his other talents because he didn't seem to know how the hell to ask a question, which would be consistent with the fact that he never tried a felony case, which is extraordinary, except what this had nothing to do with trying the case or bringing the case. Or I think it had to do with two things, getting money for a boyfriend so they could go on those nice trips and romp around. Those were an extraordinary number of trips in a short period of time. And secondly, it gave somebody she could trust with this crooked case. Remember, this guy made 2 trips to the White House unexplained, and nobody seems to care or ask what that was about, which is, again, extraordinary. It's also extraordinary that the judge has not allowed in evidence that Wade was hired to do something he had no expertise doing. That certainly is relevant to both conflict and tainting the case, which I'm kind of interested in because I'm a defendant in the case. Here, something really extraordinary has happened. There's within the Veterans Department,
Veterans Affairs, VA.
Within the Veterans Administration, right? Within the Veterans Administration, an employee who looks like a Biden woke nut job has put out a thing saying that the iconic photo of a American sailor kissing a nurse on VJ Day in the middle of Times Square is offensive because it was non-consensual, and therefore it was banned. So it was banned.
I have a picture of it up right now.
Okay. So
Do you want to hear the story?
yeah. Why don't you went through this, so why don't you give us the incredible story and just how stupidly, idiotically woke the Biden administration has become. Although here there was at least a division within the administration over it. But go ahead, explain it.
That's right, Mayor. The Department of Veterans Affairs Secretary Dennis McDonough on Tuesday rescinded a department memo meant to ban the famous World War II photo of a Navy sailor kissing a woman in New York's Times Square. Let me be clear, this image is not banned from VA facilities, and we will keep it in VA facilities. McDonough tweeted, along with the black and white image known as VJ Day in Times Square. And we have the picture up here, up on the screen. It's a very famous picture. Most of us
His name is
recognize
George Mendonça. He was 23 at the time. He had come back from the Philippines, and he was in the Navy Quartermaster Corps, as an uncle of mine was. and he was on a date with Rita Petrie, who he eventually married, by the way.
Yeah.
But that is not Vita Petrie that he's kissing, which is kind of interesting. The woman he's kissing is a woman who was 21, whose name was Greta Zimmer, and she was a nurse. And she was walking through while everyone was celebrating and everybody was kissing. And he grabbed her and kissed her. And of course, in that sort of Hollywood style, I guess that appealed to the life of photographer, because this was on the front. This was in the back on page 28 of Life magazine, believe it or not. This was not a cover picture. This became famous later. And the idea that this was non-consensual is something that was a fiction made up by the Bidenista, who decided that this was something wrong with this, inappropriate, when in fact Zimmer and Mendoza became good friends and kept up with each other over the years, even though Mendoza married the other lady, Rita Perry. And just exactly why we have idiots at a high level in the Biden administration that think about these things is scary when we got a possible war going on, right? I mean, Putin is talking about nuclear weapons, and we're talking about whether something that happened, 70 years ago, or whatever the heck it was.
1945, I guess.
Was it 45?
Right?
Well,
If this is the VJ day.
So, I mean, and if it was what are we going to do about it now?
Yeah.
I mean, and how would we know if it's non-consensual or not? Or, I mean, it just happens that this became so famous. There was a whole history that was done of this, and we know that it was consensual, perfectly appropriate. The VJ picture can go back on your walls. You don't have to worry. But boy, you sure got to take Washington down. Mm-hmm. But you can still continue to keep up posters of the Democrat Party, the biggest singular institution supporting slavery in the history of America. Don't you think that name should be changed if they're serious? What do you think, Ted? Do you think there are a bunch of hypocrites using the name Democrat Party when they want everything else changed? It has much less to do with slavery than the Democrat Party.
It's nuts. And so this ban, the idea of this ban came from Rima Ann Nelson, the VA Assistant Secretary for Health of Operations. The memo was sent on February 29th and requested that the photo be removed and replaced at all VA facilities to maintain, quote, a safe, respectful, and trauma-informed environment.
There'll be thousands of these, if not more. I mean, you see this in people's houses.
Yeah. I don't remember too many veterans from World War II complaining about it.
But I mean, most important thing is Ms. Zimmer didn't complain about it.
Nelson claimed in her memo that the photo depicts a non-consensual act, which is, quote, inconsistent with the VA's no tolerance policy towards sexual harassment and assault.
Gotta say, Mendoza was a good kisser. And she obviously a very flexible lady, the way her body is. Oh, come on.
That's ridiculous.
So, among other things, right before President Trump arrived in Eagle Pass, Texas, and this was covered up, of course, they arrested a major fugitive, a terrorist, right there coming over the border, invited by one of the Biden fugitives, invited by Biden. His name was Carlos Obed Yepes Bedova, 40 years old. He's a Colombian national and a terrorist. And of course, he wasn't caught by Biden's people or Mayorkas's people. They would have escorted him in. He was caught by the Texas police, who, against Biden's wishes, Abbott has deployed at the border, and they kept this terrorist out. Biden would have probably processed him, and this guy be walking around the United States right now, as who knows how many are, according to our FBI director, a historic number that they don't know about. But this guy is one of the increasing number of terrorists that now just walk in. Luckily, this one was caught. We don't know how many haven't been caught. We have to assume a lot because we also have to assume that the cartels assist in getting these people in because they get money for it, and make certain that they get in effectively so they can make their money. There is also, as a result of Biden's illegal open border, which he announced people should surge to 6 months before he became president, which they did, and started coming over in record numbers from the day he became president and haven't stopped. He has each year set a record for the most illegals coming into the United States. We're now at a point where it's obscene, and we are surely at about 8 million in one way or another identified. About 1.6 million gotaways also identified, but not by name, and then an unknown number of unknowns who would come in. The larger the number of crowds that are coming in, taking up the time of our immigration services, the easier it is for the cartels who manipulate the border to get people in without any knowledge, and therefore to make a fortune on fentanyl, which is at record levels of poisonings of Americans, or on the equally or maybe even worse situation of child trafficking, which is also at record levels. And America has become the largest country for child trafficking in the world, which is disgraceful, all due to Joe Biden. One of the things that indicates how many children are coming over is there's been an 88% surge in youth labor, made up of large numbers of illegal child laborers as young as 12 years old, caught all the time in the areas afflicted by this. Migrants as young as 12 years old are working in dangerous jobs. This was revealed by Senator Cassidy of Louisiana. 88% uptick in illegal child labor since Biden has been in office, including in dangerous jobs of all kinds. So records for child abuse, records for rape, records for fentanyl poisoning. This is the Biden administration. We're going to vote them out. We sure as hell are. Just so you realize it happens in the interior too, on Tuesday, a migrant from Guatemala was arrested, and he smashed a 50-year-old man in the head with a rock and stole his wallet. He lives at the homeless shelter at 146 Clay Street, and possibly is a recipient of a grand a month debit card from our mayor, Adams. But still, apparently that's not enough for him, so he had to smash somebody in the head with a rock and take his wallet. That's a Guatemalan. And Adams wants to tell you, this is really wonderful, and we have to be nice to all of these people, and we have to give them extra money. And here's an interesting fact that I think Ted would find very, very interesting. You know, there's been this big dispute with the auto workers union, and they endorsed Biden, right? Even though the auto workers seem to hate Biden, right? Do you know the auto workers union really isn't an auto workers union?
Yeah. I think I know where this is going. Yeah.
Okay, so the auto workers union back in 1970 had 1.5 million members, almost all of whom were auto workers. It now has 380,000 members. That's a hell of a decline, right?
Oh, I mean, yeah.
Of which 100,000 work in higher education. And they're
it's crazy.
They're education nerds and communists.
Not exactly the guy. Not exactly what you think of when you think of an auto worker.
And communists, Marxists. That's why the union is Marxist. So only 280 of its active members are auto workers. 100,000 and growing. And the growing part,
I was going to say, that's actually
part of the left-wing communist types.
Yeah, that's the only part that's growing.
So, I mean, who the hell do you think who the hell you think who do you think the auto workers are going to vote for? No wonder they show up in big rallies for Trump.
Yeah.
And no wonder he's winning Michigan. Right?
Right. That's a very good point. It's not.
So, of course, the nerdy Marxist Auto Workers Union supports Mr. Dodo.
Yes.
We'll have a little more about Mr. Dodo when we come back. He's probably in some kind of a chamber right now, getting some kind of oxygen or other things to get ready for tomorrow night. And we'll I don't know, tomorrow night, it can be really interesting to see how he operates tomorrow night, what they have him pumped up on, right? They did a pretty good job in the prior ones of pumping him up with stuff. So take a good look at his eyes. We'll see. We'll be back very shortly. Towers Foundation delivers on its promise to do good and never forget the sacrifices America's greatest heroes have made for us. Heroes who risked their lives to keep our communities and our country safe. Heroes like United States Marine Corps Captain and pilot John Jeremy Sachs. Captain Sachs sustained fatal injuries when his military aircraft crashed during training, killing him and 5 other service members. He's remembered by loved ones as courageous, brilliant, and devoted to his career, family, and friends. John is survived by his wife, Amber, who gave birth to their second daughter 3 months after his death. Tunnels to Towers paid the mortgage on the family home for Amber and their 2 daughters. The foundation has helped over 1,000 military and first responder families navigate the worst of times by removing the burden of a mortgage payment. Our nation's heroes and their families need your help now more than ever. Donate $11 a month to Tunnel to Towers at T2T.org. T2T.org. That's T, the number 2T.org. T2T.org. Please donate now.
Good.
Well, welcome back. So don't forget to take your fruits, your veggies, balanceofnature.com, promo code Rudy/Rudy, RUDY, get 35% off. I'm telling you, at a time like this with seasonal colds and stuff going around, and it's a good time to get started and get yourself ready for the great summer where you can swim a mile.
Be sure to use that promo code Rudy, RUDY.
And don't forget, that promo code, you just might as well remember it. You use that also with My Pillows. Don't forget Mike, huh? I was on Mike's network today.
That's right.
Had a very, very nice interview. So you make sure we keep Mike going and keep Rudy going, because you get these, and we keep up our patriotic programming.
That's right.
And as I was pointing out today, I mean, this is the way you get information. Otherwise, this stuff is kept from you, such as the one I'm going to tell you right now, because this is really important and it's just not connected together. We covered this a bit yesterday, but because it was by the way, while we're got about 10, 15 minutes left and we're going to do a little soccer time, if you guys don't mind texting in what you thought of the format last night. It's a little different for us. We had really, in a way, about 6 people. We had myself, of course, and Caitlin Sinclair, and Justine Murray, and my son Andrew. Justine was here, and Andrew and Caitlin were at a desk over there, and Ted and Mike were over here doing the technical, and Rob was back there kind of orchestrating everything and throwing things at people. And everybody got a chance to participate in one way or another. And a lot of people called me today and liked it.
Yeah.
Still the
And Dr.
studio.
Maria wasn't with us because she's taking care of some family members in. You see that? You see that little whiteboard there? That's the outline of my show. See it? So where I just pulled one down right here. I just pulled this one down right from here. This is the one we're going to do right now. I'll tell you in a second. But so I enjoyed it. I wasn't sure I would enjoy it. I was one of the people that called Roger Ailes when he first started the Five, when Fox allowed me to talk to them, and before I became a criminal. And I told them I thought the Five would never work. Too many people talking at once. A year later, it became the most popular show on television or something. And even O'Reilly had done the same thing, but O'Reilly had made the mistake of saying it on the air. And he had to go on and apologize. He went on, and credits O'Reilly, but he went on and apologized that he had been wrong about it. And I was wrong about it. It's become very popular. They have a similar show on Newsmax, The Right Squad.
Yeah.
The Right Squad. And so this wasn't quite the same because it isn't every night and it wasn't fixed. They seem to have more like fixed stories rather than open conversation. And this was mostly on the subject of covering the returns. But tell me how you liked it, because tomorrow night we're going to have a smaller group on to talk about the State of the Union speech, which I think is not only going to be the substance of the speech, but I think a lot of it emphasis will be on the delivery of it, right? Because there is this very big question as to, look, there's no question he's out of it.
He's out. Oh
The
God.
question is how far, and how much, and it is of interest to me that they can bring him back.
That will be interesting.
I remember, because there've been a couple of times, like, remember the time on the airplane coming back from China?
Yeah.
And Stinking Blinken was trying to get him off. Remember?
Yeah, he was all nervous.
Stinking Blinken and Kirby.
And
Kinda-
Kirby, they were
But
looking
kind
at
of looking at each other. Let's get this bum off here.
like,
Oh,
what's Grandpa
oh
going
my
to say
God.
next?
Because he was just standing there. And then my father, my grandmother used to say, and he looked like he was in pajamas. Looked like he was in his pajamas and he was sleepwalking.
Well, you'll be happy to know the we're going to bring this up on the screen, Mayor, and maybe you can point out what's wrong here. It is March 6th, 2024. Biden had put out on his Twitter account today information about the upcoming State of the Union, and maybe folks at home can play along. What is wrong with this? This was posted today.
I can't see it.
What is wrong with the little post here? So this is Biden announcing the State of the Union address.
Pretty obvious what's wrong with it.
February.
Did he write? Did he
Yeah.
write? Did he write this?
He must have, yeah, his team. I'd like to think he did. I know it probably wasn't, but it makes it more fun.
So what's wrong with it? Tell me what's wrong with it.
February 7th.
Here, take another look at it. Take another look at it. State of the Union. What does that say?
And the wrong year.
That's last year.
He posted this today.
That's even worse.
Yeah. That makes it worse.
That's last year.
Yeah. He posted last year,
Maybe they could at least.
this year.
What are they? Maybe was it February 7th last year?
Yeah, let me double
I
check.
wonder if it was February
They must
7th.
have
And they just pulled out the old one.
They copied and pasted. They're
But
planning their tweets a year. That's funny.
They really are dumb.
I knew you'd like that one. Let's bring this up. Yeah.
But you didn't notice in 2023 you were so focused on
Yeah,
February
yeah.
7th. They can't get a damn thing right.
Oh my goodness. So here's the thing though.
If it wasn't February 7th of last year, then it really is complete
Yeah,
screw up. It's
yeah,
complete screw
Yeah.
up. Then they really don't know what the hell they're doing.
Yeah. State of the Union 2023.
Well, I'm going to tell you a little about Kathy Chung. Would everybody like to know who Kathy Chung is? Here's Kathy Chung.
You got a picture of her?
Kathy Chung is Kathy Chung. Let's introduce these two names first. Kathy Chung and Anne Marie Muldoon. Here they are. Okay. See him? One of the circle is Kathy Chung. And the one that Joe is hugging but not smelling her hair is Anne Muldoon. These are starting in about 2012, they became his two primary gatekeepers. Kathy Chung being the main one. Now, the importance of this is these were on recommendation of Hunter Biden, the smartest man that Joe knows. And they had, Kathy Chung had worked very closely with him in the Commerce Department, with Hunter, that is. I believe also in private business. And Anne Marie Muldoon had worked at his crooked company with him for some time. So these are people that were closer to Hunter than to the president. And they became the vice president's gatekeepers, which meant Hunter could get anything he wanted, anytime he wanted, right? Why did it become important? Because these are the two people that he puts the responsibility on. Joe, President Biden rushed to the White House after her announcement of how he had screwed up all the classified papers and really should have been indicted, but wasn't because he isn't of sound mind. He blamed his former staff who did it all. He said, I take responsibility for not having seen exactly what my staff was doing. Turns out that his staff is Kathy Chung. And what they did was, excuse me, as far as I could tell, they put it all in places available to the Chinese. So a large number of records were sent to the Penn Center, which is funded by the Chinese, to which Hunter Biden has unfettered access. A second group was sent to the Foreign Policy Institute that he runs with Stinkin' Blinken, that's funded by China, to which they have access. A third was sent to Chinatown, to which they have access. And the fourth was placed in these little boxes here. You can see them up in the corner. Those little boxes were in plain view in the garage, passed by a guy who was a business partner of the chief spy of China every day. So all documents, as far as I can tell, based on the work of Kathy Chung and to some extent Ms. Muldoon, were put in places that would be easily accessible to both the Chinese and to their former boss and close working relationship and person, Hunter Biden. Now, I don't know if Herr developed that at all. He certainly did an awful lot to fix the case, which is tragic, selling yourself out like that. But this is outrageous when you consider that Trump is charged with a crime and he didn't make these things available or in peril of being seen by China, certainly. Here they're handled by people that were close to Hunter Biden, who's getting millions from China, put in places where China can have access to them, put in places where Hunter can have access to them. No charge. And you're charging the other guy, and it's not political? Oh, I think maybe a little more questioning of Kathy Chung publicly might be not a bad idea, huh? What do you think? So we can find out just exactly how our national security was compromised by our president. I also have told you this before, but this is much bigger than among the many things that President Trump has to fix, which includes our military, where China is outspending us left and right to become the major military power in the world, already the largest Navy, is the corruption that we have in American cities that is outrageous. and they're in Democrat cities. I mean, the best examples are New York and Chicago. Chicago, 60 years of Democrat rule, murders over a weekend like it's a war zone. New York is now a migrant crime capital, one scandal after another. The mayor's second aide now has been raided. He's under investigation by the state and the city. In New York, the last two governors before Hochul had to leave off, a Democrat elected had to leave office for scandals. The president's got to straighten that out. We're going to have to get rid of the Democrat Party as we know it and replace it with a new party, hopefully with a new name, not associated with slavery, and with all the decent Democrat people who aren't the people that are currently, in the high offices, because it seems like they're all corrupt, or they turn their back on it. But gee, we have Republican parties that kind of don't give us much hope that we're going to make that change. And one of them is in New York, unfortunately. New York has, and I've objected to this before, New York has a boss-dominated political system that's just an imitation of the Democrats. And best illustrated by the fact that they just nominated an unknown named Mike Sapricone for the U.S. Senate to run against Kristen Gillibrand. Nobody in the party knows Sapricone except for the people who have been the beneficiary of the huge amount of money that he spread around. But before he spread money around the Republican Party, he spread money around the Democratic Party. And one of them that he gave money to was Kristen Gillibrand during her campaign to hang Trump. He also contributed to the assemblyman who was the major architect of the bail law, which is the reason so many people in New York get killed, and which is an outrage for the police, and he's a former cop. His activities as a cop also cost the city of New York $3 million for a case that was thrown out because he had withheld exculpatory evidence. So he doesn't have exactly a great record as a cop. He cost the city a fortune for his misdeeds. And finally, he donated 30 grand to Swazi, who's the Democratic candidate for Congress. And he donated 10 grand to Cuomo, who signed the bail bill that results in people getting beaten up, killed, shot, robbed, and who knows what else in New York in numbers that frighten the living daylights out of people, and which the cops tell you is the major reason for it. He's a big funder of it. Now, in addition, he's quoted as saying on his radio show that he'd never want to see his son grow up like Trump. Trump has a terrible ego. That unlike Trump and me, he hasn't been arrested. That he would never vote for Trump. And of course, with all the money that he spread around, he never donated any money to Trump. So exactly how is this going to unite the party? The party's up in arms. The rank and file of the party are up in arms. They didn't choose him. They're a little group. The smoke-filled room chose him. And we want to change the party? We want to change the state? And this is what we're doing? Ed Cox, this is what you're doing? Ed's a friend of mine. I'm sorry, but friendship stops when you start screwing around with government. It turns out to be government, and you start playing these corrupt games. This is a corrupt way to nominate someone. The way to do it is you got Cara Castronova and the other gentleman. What's his name? John
Eason.
Both of whom are very loyal Republicans. Cara is one that I endorsed. Cara was on the show last night. Cara is a superb investigative reporter. She's been one of the key people on January 6th. She also was a championship boxer. Beautiful woman, but a championship boxer. And is a terrific writer and thinker and a supporter of MAGA and America First, and not a contributor to Letitia James. Trump endorsed him with one fact, not given to him correctly. I would urge the president to change that. He shouldn't be had like that. Terrible thing. And all it will do is keep the party divided. And it can make it just harder to reform this party. It can be hard enough anyway. I mean, I was the first Republican elected mayor in something like 50 years or 40 years, and only the third in the 20th century. So having done that and remained a Republican, I do think I have standing to say something about this.
Name the successful. Okay, I'm considering New York City as almost statewide, but whether New York City or statewide, how many successful Republicans have we seen in the last
George Pataki,
15 years?
George Pataki and Pete King, who was the congressman from out there, has asked this guy to step down.
Yeah,
Peter had
he was popular.
Him, I guess Peter feels that he was lied to.
Yeah,
Peter has said, "Get out, go stink up some other political party." Break.
maybe we should.
So tomorrow night, now, did we get any feedback?
Well, I was thinking we take one more break. We come back and we talk some more.
We'll take one more break. We'll talk about tomorrow night and what we're going to do about State of the Union.
And we're hitting big numbers again tonight. So this is something we do once in a while, and we'll do it going into the break here. Comment below. Let us know where you're tuning in from. We love reading and hearing where you're tuning in from. Name the city, state, and/or country that you're watching us from tonight, and we'll play some of those and kind of comment on that after the break.
Our device is something that you can plug into your television, and now you can use your television as a social television type experience. So in the Portal universe, you can watch your favorite content creators' videos, live streams, music. We also have TV subscriptions as well.
Subscriptions.
You can also
regular channels, all the sports.
Right, you can actually cut your cable from your cable subscription and get QUX TV on our QX TV boxes, and you can pay half the price that you're currently paying for your cable television subscription, and you can get all the best premium TV channels and more. I mean, it's really, there's so much on there, Rudy. I mean, you've seen it.
No, I've seen it and I use it, and it's I mean, it's great. It's just exactly the same except for half the price. Plus, nobody is finding out what I'm watching, and that's not being reported to anybody.
Right, so you have absolute privacy using this device, which you don't have on other devices out there currently on the market.
This is absolutely great. QUX.TV is how you can find out about it. QUX.TV.
Use promo code Rudy to receive $30 off.
Welcome back. And again, just comment below. We're going to list off on the side here. We'll play our comment section here. Let us know where you're tuning in from, city and state. If it's a different country, let us know what country. Back to you, Mayor.
Well, I mean, that also, QUX, that's a great one, boy. I mean, we're watching, I've got it on right there, right now. And great reception. Cheap as hell. It costs nothing. You get everything, 300 and something stations. I get One American News, which they block out, the communists block out here in New York. Of course, I get Fox and Newsmax and all the rest of them as well, but you get those pretty much everywhere. But One American News, they've been playing around with, and you get me. So I give QUX a try again. Another group of patriots, and also you get a degree of safety there that you don't get elsewhere. They don't share your data with anyone at all. Were you surprised about the Auto Workers Union being basically a 1/3 higher education?
Not at all. Not at all.
A bunch of Marxist swine.
Not even a little bit. Just kind of being from Michigan and knowing.
Were you surprised that Kathy Chung distributed all of the papers and put them in places that were available to the Chinese, and that her doesn't make that point? Look, that they were.
Mayor, you are the foremost expert, whether you like it or not. You become the foremost expert on Hunter Biden, on Joe Biden, and the Biden crime family. So just spending all this time with you, no, I am not surprised And I wouldn't be surprised if we didn't learn a lot more about this sort of activity from these people.
Oh, I think that those I mean the reason it's outrageous that they're prosecuting Trump and not Biden is there was nothing that suggested Trump's were compromised, and there's everything that suggested that Biden's were. And one is I don't know how a court doesn't just step in one of these courts and just what we call it in the law sua sponte, SUA SPONTE, sua sponte, on your own. A court on its own say, I can't take this. I'm dismissing all the cases. I never heard of anybody trying to prosecute someone 4 times in 1 year. It's quite obvious. I mean, I'd have to be like a half-wit jerk, even dumber than Biden, not to realize that this is done for purely political purposes, that is a desecration of the criminal justice system, a desecration of the law, makes us look like a gangster country. And therefore, I'm dismissing every single one of them as a violation of due process, because nobody could possibly prepare for 4 trials in 1 year, which means you are deliberately violating his due process rights. See what the Supreme Court does with that. I do it. If I were a judge, a federal judge, I would be acting as the ancient court of equity. You know what the court of equity is? So our courts began when the king didn't have the time to adjudicate, when 2 guys had a fight or one person stole land or this land or that land or this land, he appointed people to do it.
Old-time judges.
They were known as the King's Bench.
That's where the term bench came from.
The King's Bench. The King's Bench set up the rules based on precedent. They didn't write statutes like we do now, but the judges made the law way back in the 11th century and 12th century and 13th century. They made the law of crime, and they made the law of tort, and they made the law of contract, and they made the law of property, and they made the law as the cases came up. You would say, I came to you and I needed to borrow a cow for 3 days, and I paid you only for 1 day. And then the judge would say, well, how much the usual amount? And you would say it. And then the judge would say that we had a contract. And a contract is an agreement between 2 people where both sides have a responsibility. And that if one side doesn't carry it out, is a breach of the contract, and the other side has to be made whole. That's how the law of contracts began. No legislature wrote that. A judge decided that and then wrote it out in an opinion. And then that became how you define a contract. And the same thing with property, and the same thing with criminal law, and how, what became a crime and what didn't become a crime. Under what circumstances was lying a crime. So that was all developed by the King's Bench. And the law became very rigid after 100 years or 200 years. It became very, very rigid, and people would steal a small amount of property, and they go to jail for, there'd be only 1 sentence for stealing, chopping your hands off or some crazy thing like that, or going to jail for 10 years. So they developed that came out of the church, really. You could go to another judge. Originally, it would be a clerical, ecclesiastical judge, but eventually they became civil judges, and they were known as the Court of Equity. And you could say to the Court of Equity, Judge, this is too unfair. I paid for the cow for 3 of the 4 nights, but I got to pay back as if I didn't pay for it at all. That isn't fair. That's right. And he'd make an adjudication to it, saying the Court of Equity reverses or revises. And it wasn't like it was a separate body of law known as equity. Like what you study in law school, a separate body of law known as equity, that balanced the harshness of the law and the letter of the law. And so these 2 systems of law, the King's Court and the Court of Equity, grew up together. Eventually, somewhere after Henry VIII or so, they were merged together into one. So now we apply law and equity together as common law, correct?
English common law.
Yeah. And then what we did in America is we borrowed English common law, But we also borrowed a little of the experience of the European law, the Roman to Napoleonic law, which is statutory law. Roman law was made by the Senate. They wrote the laws out. Statutes.
Like a list of
And the Code of Napoleon was a code written out based on Roman law, or the law of Justinian, which was which became the basis for Greek law.
So they didn't take into account what we know as precedent,
They
right?
did, but after the law was established.
That was it.
So then courts would read the statute, and the statutes would never anticipate every situation, right?
Yeah.
So then the statute would start to get interpreted. So now you had a combination of both. You had the statute, and then you had the court precedents. This is what the statute means.
But you didn't have case law.
But you had case law eventually then.
Eventually
Eventually it became both. In America.
Yeah. But under a system like Napoleonic,
Napoleonic
system,
the court,
there's no
all,
case.
There really is, but it isn't as rigid as ours.
Different. Okay.
Judges always have some discretion to change things. So now tomorrow night's going to be the State of the Union speech. So what's he going to do? But before we get to the really big part, can he do it? What's he going to do? What's he going to? If you were him, Mr. Political Expert, if you were him, what would you emphasize tomorrow night at the State of the Union? Now, his campaign so far has been, and I think this is fair, has not been substantive at all. His campaign so far has been Trump will be a dictator. I don't think he'll do that with the State of the Union.
So that's interesting. And by the way, being called a political expert by America's mayor himself, I mean, it doesn't get much better than that. However, I'm going to turn this on you, Mayor, and this might be tough to do, but being the lawyer you are, I know you're used to having to get into the head of the other side, right? So what would you focus on if you're working for Joe Biden? I know that would never happen in a million years, but for some reason, oh my goodness, we don't know what to do. And someone calls you and you're like, all right, I'm going to give them real advice. What would you do? Because everything does seem to be working against him. And I think people might be curious, what advice would you give him? Now, we don't want to don't give him too good of advice, because I do think his people watch your show. So we don't want to help him too much, but.
No, I think we're helping. I think that's what he's going to do.
Yeah.
I think he's going to try to continue to persuade that the economy is a lot better than we think.
Yeah.
And he's going to use numbers for that. And there are numbers he can use and numbers we can use.
Yeah.
The real problem is the real numbers that count are the numbers at the grocery store, and the real numbers of the grocery are up. So I don't know how far you get with that. I mean, he's going to talk about how employment is up, wages are up, and he's going to forget to mention inflation. He's going to say inflation is down, but inflation is down from the historic highs he had it at. It's not down to where it was under Trump. And the balance with the high interest rates is things still cost more. So whether it's inflation or the high interest rates that mean you're paying 30% more for milk, you're still paying 30% more for milk. The gasoline prices have gone up again. So he's going to try to show it's not as. I think he makes a big mistake if he does the Bidenomics thing again. Things are wonderful. He can't persuade people things are wonderful. He could persuade people things not as bad as they think. That's what I would try to do if I were running his campaign. They're overdoing it, and we're starting to show some real economic progress. That's what I would do on the economy, which is his key problem. He's going to have to stick with his green bullshit, because those are his voters. He's just going to turn everybody else off. He's going to say things like, we produce a tremendous amount of oil, but we're still not energy independent.
Yeah.
But he'll just throw out the statistic on oil.
Yeah.
Not show that in the big scheme of things, we're getting killed on oil.
Yeah.
But he'll throw that statistic out. It'll be incumbent on the Republicans to correct that.
He's got to make a big to-do about January 6th, right?
He will.
He has to. It's election year. They've been setting this whole thing up, right, for this moment. to keep Trump out of office. So it is election year. I would be shocked if he didn't really make a big deal about not only January
Very
6th.
stupid to do it.
I agree with you, but for some reason
For some reason, I think they may.
will.
I mean,
I agree with you.
do they realize that they've run their course?
Yeah.
In other words, they took their shot with all the prosecutions, all this, all that, everything. And the more they prosecute him, the more popular he gets. So trying to sell that might actually be selling Trump rather than yourself. I just let that be. And right now, I think the way those cases operate for him, they don't hurt Trump any more than he's hurt or held. I think they hurt in the sense that they're obstacles for him. Instead of being able to campaign, he's got to be in court, and that's the way they're going to hurt him.
Yeah.
Unless something new comes out in one of those cases, I don't even think a conviction will hurt him. I mean, they say, oh, if he's convicted, the polls show that he loses. Here, the latest poll was he's winning 47-44, but he loses 45-44 if he gets convicted. That means he wins because of electoral vote. So it is not true that a conviction shows that he loses. So they better watch out putting all their eggs in that basket. What I would do if I were them, as I said, I'd say not as bad as they're making it out. We're moving on the right track. I'd go to abortion right away, and I'd say they're trying to take away a woman's right. They're trying to destroy women, however he likes to say that. I would somehow I don't know if he's going to get, I mean, they're going to try to blame him for the border, that the Republicans should have agreed to the bill that ends up regularizing 1.4 million illegal people per year. I don't know how the hell he's going to do that, except he's not going to say it during the talk. He's going to just say Republicans didn't agree, and that's why we have the border problems we have. Don't think that sells. It's been too much of a history now of 4 years of records of illegals coming in. He's going to try to convince us that we're safe. What he does on foreign policy is anybody's guess. He's got it so screwed up.
What can he do?
I mean, he's got on Israel, he's on both sides, right? On Israel, he's in favor of supporting Israel. At the same time, he wants to have a ceasefire that will kill him. And he wants to have a Palestinian state that would allow for another terrorist state. So is he going to say that he's going to say, because he's afraid of the Arab vote staying home more than anything else, he's going to say he wants to see an end in Israel. You're going to say that.
Yeah.
He's not going to square that with, he doesn't want to see an end in Ukraine.
He's got to hook up his
So in Ukraine, he wants to see continued spending of money.
Yeah.
Now, is he going to have a goal for Ukraine? Is he going to say, well, here's where we're going in Ukraine? Be interesting to hear what that is.
Yeah.
Never had one.
Yeah, right. What could he say there?
I don't know.
I can't even imagine.
I don't think he's going to announce that it's over.
Yeah.
Or that we're going to negotiate. I doubt it.
He's going to talk tough. He's going to say we got to give them the money and the weapons they need. He's going to blame Trump somehow.
The biggest fear he has in foreign policy is the Michigan Arab vote. It's kind of strange that he's so focused just on it. It is one state and one vote.
Well,
I mean, his bigger problem is the continuing war in Ukraine, never ending, never ending, never ending. He might help himself if he talked about ending it. He might.
Yeah, but I just don't know that even now after 2 years, how much are people thinking of the Ukraine situation is at the top of their minds?
No,
but unfortunately, I mean, look, it's
on top of the mind situation.
Yeah,
he's going to have to. He's going to have to blame
there.
He's going to have to blame the Republicans for not agreeing to the bipartisan legislation.
Yeah,
that's what he'll do.
And so that was the whole point of that.
And then in the response, the Republicans will point out that the bipartisan legislation would have made illegal immigration even worse, because it would have allowed in over 1 million illegals every year on top of the 10 million we already have, and also led to amnesty. And also who believes he's only going to allow 1 million in? He's lied every time he's talking. I mean, last year he was going to do this CDP program and only 3,000 a month were going to come in, and it's 20,000 a month.
So is the goal tomorrow for Biden?
Well, that's the substance.
Yeah.
The real issue, I think, what does he look like? What does he look like?
Yeah.
And so far, he's passed that test barely. The last time he just made it, it was like he was hanging in there.
But they went super long on
he
purpose.
went too long last time.
Yeah, and they did that on purpose.
They did it on purpose, but I wouldn't take that risk.
This time?
Yeah, to just get that extra 20 minutes, if he does a blank, ooh.
If he pulls a Mitch
Whoa.
on the biggest stage.
Last time he was flirting with it.
Yeah.
If you want to go back and look at the last half hour of that one, that's when the Ubadabakaguzaba started.
You know, they got some sort of plan with the vice president sitting over his shoulder. They got to have some sort of plan in place. Hey, if he freezes up, you got to pull him or something. Yeah. He's got to pull some, or shock him with a little poker. Got to like, up. Just in case, right?
I mean, you look at him recently, he's been terrible, but then they do give him something, because there are times where you see him walking around, he looks like he's asleep.
Yeah.
And then the next day, he's got a sharp tie on. Yeah. He looks okay. The makeup is great. Then sometimes he looks like death warmed over.
I'll see if we have the video from.
But that's going to be, I think that's going to take over the substance. And he's never been a good substantive speaker anyway.
He never was. He used
never, even when he was.
Except when he lied and stole somebody else's work.
Yeah, but even then he wasn't much of a substantive speaker. He's not a Clinton or even a
he's strictly a backslapper.
And in a strange way, Trump is an issue nerd.
Oh, Trump's a huge issues nerd.
Oh, let's talk about issues.
Well, especially if he's anything like you, right? I wonder sometimes about him, and I just think of you and getting to know you and your habits, right? I mean,
he loves to talk about issues. You can sit on that plane with him. You can talk all day about 5 different things and 5 different issues and what's going on in this country, what's going on in that country. And having been president, he's become a real expert on it.
Yeah.
And if you listen to him, he's much better than he used to be.
He's got a big brain,
but he does, and he can go off script, and sometimes be better than script. Whereas when this guy goes off script, you never know where he ends up in La La Land. He's going to have to stay with that script, and those medicines are going to have to work.
Well, talk about a real challenge. Imagine having to write. Although when you're a Democrat, you don't get fact checked. But imagine having to write a State of the Union address for this guy this year, considering everything that's happened.
I think what did he do? An hour plus last time?
Yeah.
He definitely. I mean, if he does 1 hour, he will accomplish the goal.
Yeah.
Of showing that he can handle the hour, and if he goes beyond an hour, I wouldn't take the risk.
Yeah.
I wouldn't take the risk. And I'm telling you, last time they pushed it and they got away with it. But it was, and it's a year later, and he's been worse since last year.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Let's watch him. This is him. This is him at the
end of last year.
This is him at the border a couple of days ago. Oh, you can't see it. Sorry, but you can talk. You can.
Yeah,
talk
I mean, well, they'll have a mix. First of all, the hat doesn't help here.
Look at him.
And watching him walk never helps. Watching him walk never helps, because there's something. Now, I don't know if that walk is a product of his dementia or some other illness, but it's definitely an elderly person's walk, right?
Yeah. Which again, well, that's the other thing he's going to play up tomorrow, right? He's got to be funny. He's got to make a joke about age, and he needs to he needs to somehow level the playing field with President Trump, right? By basically making an age joke and pointing out that they're the same age or similar in age, right? Because it can't be he won't win it on if we're talking about the cognitive ability of the two men, but he can try to keep a level playing field by just bringing up age.
Yeah, I don't know how he's going to do that.
He's got to make some joke. He's got to be funny about it. And
I mean, he could try to imitate Reagan, but it would be too much imitation. I'm not going to make an issue
I
out
was
of.
gonna say, how
I'm not going to make an issue out of Trump's age. You know,
Well, yeah. What was that? That's one of the
Reagan
great.
said, "I'm not going to make an issue out of your youth and inexperience,"
It was like a brilliant.
because they had said he was too old in the first debate. He said, "Well, I do not intend to make an issue
See now
out of
that
Senator Mondale's inexperience and youth."
Biden's how old? Is he 80 or no?
Biden's 80,
81?
81, and
And
Trump's 77.
So that's 4 years difference. That's a big enough difference.
At that age, it's a big difference.
And at that age, it's a big difference. And also, but I really hope the Biden people are not watching tonight, because you just came up with what would be the right
Yeah,
answer.
but you can't,
He won't pull it off.
it'd be too much of an imitation. It'd be too much of an
And
imitation.
he's already accused of stealing other
It
people's
would be
ideas.
plagiarism. Now he's
What?
plagiarizing.
Now and then tries to pass it off as his own.
Yeah.
But
But
that is an answer. You just gave the Biden camp. I hope they don't see this. But if they do
Let him
debate,
say it. Let him say it. I mean, I think if they said it, they sound like jackasses.
he wouldn't be able to pull it off, right? You got to actually. It's performative. It's how you say it as
No,
much
he's
as
never
saying it.
been. He's never been a good performer of any kind. And I mean, I think it depends on the medicine. Are they still working? Are the medicines still
Well,
working?
yeah.
Are they? There's going to come here's the reality. There's going to come a point when they don't work anymore. That's what happens with that illness, whatever form it is. He has dementia. Dr. Maria doesn't think he has Alzheimer's, but he has dementia. But dementia, Alzheimer's is a subset of dementia. But they all share in common being oddly described as progressive when they're regressive. Like the Democrat Party is described as progressive and is regressive. So is dementia, meaning you get worse. You can remain at a plateau. You can have modest temporary improvements based on certain medicines, but you never, I believe this is correct. Once a brain cell is dead, it doesn't regenerate. So you're not going to grow. Once that particular brain cell is gone, that's causing you loss of memory, you're never getting it back. So it's just going to keep getting worse and worse and worse. And if you live long enough, you don't know who you are after a while. And it depends on how long you live and how acute the disease is. But his is acute. He's had moments where there are these long pauses, and it's hard to say what's going on in his head. It looks like nothing. There could be one time when nothing happens. The pause happens, and that is it. He goes off into La La Land, which is tragic and awful and terrible, and you don't even wish it on him. But we're just talking reality now.
So, folks,
and for them, it's the worst risk of all for a political group, because you want to be in. The whole purpose is to be in control, particularly in a presidential campaign. You want to control. You don't want, and then if it goes out of control, you just hope you're lucky. But the minute it goes out of control, your political skill is gone, right?
Yeah.
Nothing you can do about something that goes out of control. And this is why they shouldn't be running them, because as time goes by, I guess it gets less and less, or maybe worse and worse. There is the real risk that he'll just fade out.
I mean, look,
at some point that we're not expecting.
Look at Senator McConnell.
Well, Senator McConnell came back, but I don't think he can afford coming back. I think if he does a McConnell, it's over. I don't think he can come back the next day and start talking.
Especially when you're president, right? Even different being president than Senate minority leader.
The difference is that if that happens, God forbid, when he's got to decide whether we defend ourselves or not, he doesn't get a chance to go to the hospital and come back the next day. We're all gone. Imagine if they come in and they say the Russians are about to attack us. What are we going to do when this happens?
It's actually scary. I don't even want to laugh at that. It's like, what?
Well, that's what bothers me.
It's a White House.
Forget all the joking around and all the. It bothers the hell out of me having worked in the White House, thinking of him going back there at night, and we're sleeping and these things happen, and I would, when I was mayor, I probably got awakened in my sleep once a week, once every 2 weeks.
Does that happen for the president without going into detail?
Well, it should if he's a president. I don't know if it happens with him.
But his, I
One
mean,
of
you've been
times
around
they
enough
felt that
presidents.
Nobody ever got Obama up like during he always wanted to sleep.
But does that happen to presidents?
It should happen.
They get woken up?
I
in the
know.
middle of the
I
night?
know Trump was.
Woke up
I
in the
mean,
middle
when
of
he
the
was a candidate, I woke him up.
night. In the middle of the night, or whenever time
Yeah,
something happened. Yeah.
yeah.
Well, you don't sleep.
No, but I mean
You're
that.
always up working,
I
but
didn't
you
wake him
are.
up. I didn't wake him up for fun. I woke him up because something serious happened.
Yeah. As a candidate in 16.
In my case, my people know if you don't wake me up, somebody else working for me the next day.
Yeah.
You better wake me up, and I'll never get angry at you for waking me up.
Yeah. You get angry
And
if you don't wake me up.
making a mistake. I know you're not going to get me up with something frivolous, but you failed to get me up, and I'm going to be very angry, and it's unforgivable.
Yeah.
And I'm the mayor. It's my responsibility. It's my judgment they voted for, not somebody else's. And I thought they really did vote for my judgment because they wanted
100%.
Dickens the hell out, and they wanted somebody who knew what the hell they were doing, and they voted for that, and they were entitled to get it.
Wow. They got
And
feelings hearing that.
when who runs the police department? I do.
The mayor, the person they elected you.
Who gets fired if who pays the price if something goes wrong? I do. Not it's a mayoral agency. That's why I always thought Bratton was silly to get upset that I interfered so much. You're damn right I'm going to interfere. I also knew more about it than he did.
Yeah.
I was more experienced than he was. Older. I was in law enforcement longer. I was a much higher level of law enforcement. I had helped to write the one of the definitive analysis of violent crime 10 years earlier.
Yeah.
So I didn't interfere for my ego. I interfered. I didn't interfere on things I didn't know a lot about. I studied them. I mean, I spent months studying the budget and having Peter Powers teach it to me in the basement of Graythie Mansion.
Yeah, well,
Peter was an accountant, and we would sit there with the budget.
Yeah.
And we'd go through each agency. Okay, tonight we're going to do this agency.
Yeah.
Wait, what does that mean? I don't understand. How do you do that entry? What is that stupid thing right there? I mean, I didn't know. I did. What's
Oh, yeah. You did the job as mayor. You were actually doing the job. How many nightclubs did you visit?
Around ordering them around about how to do a budget when I didn't know how to do it. But I did order them around about how to do policing when I knew how to do it.
How many Fashion Week fashion shows were you walking down during Fashion Week when you were mayor? I don't have to answer that, right? But that's like some people like
maybe I went to 2 and showed up to open them up.
Well, look,
This is Fashion Week in New York, and today we have fashions.
You got good fashion, so that was probably the wrong example. You got
I
good
don't know
suits.
much about it, but I would open it up. I do the curtain speech,
But some people really
Today,
do. Yeah.
Fashion Week.
So let me
get back to reducing crime, right?
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Leave me alone.
Well, that's the thing. You fit them in, but you were in and out. You were sitting there.
Please, I got to get back.
And it's like, so some people really do run for office because they enjoy that. They want to hobnob and go to the champagne parties and, talk with the hoity-toity folks. You did it because you wanted to do the work as mayor. And so it's interesting. You see people that run for office now, they enjoy the trappings of the office, right? They enjoy the mansion part.
Very often the cocktail parties and the parties at night, and it's a weakness.
Yeah.
It's a weakness. If you see the weakness, generally don't vote for the person. It's a weakness.
Yeah.
Yeah. If you're too attracted by that, you're going to have a very hard time making the tough substantive decision because you're not going to want to be unpopular. I mean, an awful lot of what happens in Washington. I remember Jeb Bush telling me he wouldn't vote for John McCain because John McCain was too interested in what the Washington Post wrote about him. He said, "My brother isn't, and that's what makes him a good president."
That's a good line.
I mean,
that's a good line and a fair one.
Yeah. I mean, I was trained by Ronald Reagan that you do the opposite of what the New York Times writes. So I never had any respect for the editorial writing.
Yeah. I would love to. What I would do to be in one of those press conferences with you.
Be doing my job.
Yeah. That's so true. These guys are the ones writing about what you are doing.
Yeah. I mean, I know. They're guessing.
Yeah.
They're getting leaks of what I know. Some of it accurate, some of it inaccurate. Half of it lie. Most of the people who leak lie.
And
to be a leaker, you're a person of little character. So you're probably going to lie more often than not. And the leakers are the people. Leakers are a strange group. They're the group, unless it's a tactical leaks are a different thing. Like if we're going to put out a big program and we want to get a little advanced publicity, I don't can. That's not really a leak. That's an authorized disclosure that you're doing. Yeah.
It's you using them.
Yeah,
And then
it's
thinking that.
it's a public relations technique.
Yeah.
But a leak of information they're not supposed to get out, it's a person of no character. It's usually a person that the press gets to on ego.
Or disgruntled. Yeah.
You mean you don't know?
Yeah, I love that. You're right. That is, and I know that
Now,
for sure. Yeah.
That's how they get a lot of inaccurate stuff because they don't know.
Yeah.
They make it up.
And with the White House, you really get that, right?
They do the best they can. And sometimes it's partially true and partially not true because they really weren't at the meeting that they claim to be at.
Yeah.
But they want the reporter to think,
Yeah. I'm a big deal in this building. Yeah.
I'm a big mocker.
I'm in on everything. Yeah. Oh, I know.
Well,
That's
we're
fun,
having a
too.
good time tonight. Too good. We gonna have a long session tomorrow night with the State of the Union speech. Can be really interesting. It's like watching a heavyweight championship fight to see if the guy gets beyond the first round, right?
Yeah, and this will be one of the more exciting ones, but you're right. It's just like the Super Bowl of politics. Well, no, those are elections, but this is one of the big events in politics of the year, right?
Yeah.
The State of the Union, everyone's going.
Taking it down.
real
Though,
nerd.
it used to be bigger. It used to be bigger when a great speaker used to give it. Even when Trump gave it, it was always exciting.
That's actually
You
a
never
good point.
knew what he was going to do.
You're right, and everyone would tune in. And it's probably in the Biden's best interest to downplay the moment, right? They don't. But
Biden doesn't have a flair for the dramatic like that. I mean, Obama made them into big occasions.
he did. You got to give him
Clinton
credit.
made them into big occasions.
Even under Bush, it became a big deal.
Bush had some very important moments.
That's why
like
after
the
9/11,
war.
yeah.
Reagan, of course. Reagan, I think, created the modern.
State of the
He's the
Union.
one who created inviting the people and congratulating.
Oh,
them.
that was him. Okay.
Yeah.
Then Clinton kept that up. You know that.
Yeah.
That's
Then
interesting.
they overdid it for a while.
Yeah.
I forgot who overdid it. Was it Bush or Obama? But they had like 10 people.
Yeah, everybody.
Yeah.
The whole plane.
This
They
guy
announced every single.
This guy got ice cream for a 5-year-old. You know.
Yeah.
I'm going to introduce Robert Jones.
You're right. Yeah.
Ice cream for a 4-year-old. Oh, it's melting.
Yeah.
You know?
But you're right. Every member. Now that I think about it, I was on the Hill. I was a Hill staffer for a year.
Oh, I there.
Yeah. They all bring somebody. They all invite somebody from the district, and usually it's a good story, right? But not always. I remember sometimes a guy would bring like their buddy, their college
Nick
buddy.
Jones, who runs the best delicatessen
Yeah.
in Sheboygan.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Yeah. But he's a big donor, right? You know, he gives us 11 grand a year. So he gets a
I
couple.
was invited once with George Pataki. That was September 11 when he made his speech.
Why was he invited?
Well, we both were invited because of September 11.
With George. I thought you said by George
No,
Pataki.
with
I thought you were with.
George and I were invited
Yeah.
together, and we stood up and
Oh my good. You
got
were
a standing ovation.
So you experienced that.
Yeah,
Where you were the one that the president
yeah.
Bush looked at you
It
and
wasn't
said,
the State of the Union. It was the speech that he gave to announce the war against
session of Congress.
against terrorists.
Okay.
The session of Congress.
And he had you there and he
Very,
pointed to you
very exciting.
and everyone was rah, rah, rah.
Oh my God! Everybody was very patriotic.
Bipartisan. Everyone stood up and everyone
Big
clapped.
time. I didn't even know I was a Republican.
Oh, you're an
I'm
American.
just an American.
And it's unfortunate that
I wanted to Pataki and I wanted to volunteer and go fight.
I can imagine. Oh my goodness, right? Oh my
Well,
goodness.
We're going to be back tomorrow. You keep up. Tomorrow we'll be on at 3 on WABCradio.com. We had a really, really good show today. We're going to have a really good show tomorrow.
We didn't even talk about
Getting
Steve
ready-
Garvey.
getting
Sorry.
to the State of the Union. Tomorrow we'll talk about Steve Garvey because I'm trying to figure out if he can throw brushback pitches against
Yeah. Baseball, politics, this involves everything we love, Mayor.
Yeah.
Adam Schiff, minus Adam Schiff. Unfortunately, we got to talk about that pencil
would it
neck.
be to have a Hall of Fame first baseman in the Senate.
Yeah, or that pencil neck.
Yeah, and we got any pitchers left? I'd like to throw they should have we should throw a brushback pitch on pencil neck. But he couldn't get out of the way. He doesn't look very athletic.
Oh God, can you imagine him taking please.
He is a major liar. Ooh,
Major league liar.
wow, is he a liar?
And somehow he won.
Yeah.
He got the most votes. He was number one in the runoff in
We put him
California.
together with Swalwell, the Chinese spy lover.
Yeah, well, these are not serious people.
Is Fang Fang around?
And honestly, if they were more competent, I'm almost thankful, right? Because They're so incompetent. Yes, they are doing great damage to the country. But they could be a lot further along if they actually had competent people.
Hard to beat them, though. I mean, in California, it's gonna be hard to beat them. I mean, Garvey, I guess, given the celebrity idea there, and he is a heck of a good candidate, by the way. Times that I've seen Garvey, I thought he was a good candidate for a guy making a transition.
And he came very close. I want to actually bring up the see if it got any closer.
Oh, he almost won?
Yeah, he was actually getting so close. Look at that. 1,200,000 to 1.245.
Yeah,
so that's
yeah,
18,000. That's an 18,
virtually even. Yeah.
which is amazing. That's incredible.
The question is, how do you go the rest of the way to 50?
Yeah.
Is that where a Republican?
That's the cap. Like the best guy ever. Great candidate.
Although remember, I don't know what Trump is running in California if they're doing a poll, but they did a poll in New York and Trump was only behind by 9%. And whatever Trump runs there, Garvey's going to run better.
Exactly.
In California.
Passover.
Yeah.
So we'll have to watch that. But yeah, anyway, maybe tomorrow we'll look more into that. And then before tomorrow night, I got to find this clip of the mayor at the joint session of Congress. I'm guessing in 2001 or 2002.
Okay.
All right.
Well, thank you very, very much. God bless the people of Israel. God bless the people of the United States. And God bless America. Our purpose to bring to bear the principle of common sense and rational discussion to the issues of our day. America was created at a time of great turmoil, tremendous disagreements, anger, hatred. It was a book written in 1776 that guided much of the discipline of thinking that brought to us the discovery of our freedoms, of our God-given freedoms. It was Thomas Paine's Common Sense, written in 1776, one of the first American bestsellers, in which Thomas Paine explained, by rational principles, the reason why these small colonies felt the necessity to separate from the Kingdom of Great Britain and the King of England. He explained their inherent desire for liberty, for freedom, freedom of religion, freedom of speech, the ability to select the people who govern them. And he explained it in ways that were understandable to all the people, not just the elite. Because the desire for freedom is universal. The desire for freedom adheres in the human mind, and it is part of the human soul. This is exactly the time we should consult our history. Look at what we've done in the past and see if we can't use it to help us now. We understand that our founders created the greatest country in the history of the world, the greatest democracy, the freest country, a country that has taken more people out of poverty than any country ever. All of us are so fortunate to be Americans. But a great deal of the reason for America's constant ability to self-improve is because we're able to reason, we're able to talk, we're able to analyze. We are able to apply